I mean, it's unbelievable that somebody can make a statement like this when 20 or 30,000 people died for hunger or malnutrition and worked hard. I mean, he's lying, or he's not aware. I wouldn't say lying, maybe he was told a propaganda story from his superior. But if he was there, he could have seen the people. And in Peenemünde, he must have seen the people, because he worked in Peenemünde from his own statement. And we were in Peenemünde, we worked in Peenemünde to build the Peenemünde, to make sure we did all the labor work there. So he hasn't told the truth, I'm sorry.
But most of the Peenemünders were never in Middelburg. I was never there. I had no way of knowing. And besides that, the real situation at the concentration camps, which was so terrible and absolutely horrible, there's no doubt about that, that was not known to most of the Germans. I had not known it until I came to this country and then learned and heard about it. But before that, I did not know what has been going on.
Do you believe that to be true?
Well, if he was in Peenemünde, he must have seen us.
You saw what was going on there. You were there yourself.
I mean, I was in Peenemünde. So were 1,200 prisoners. I mean, he must have been blind. He must have blinders on, not to see the 1,200 prisoners who did all the labor work.
Did you ever go to needlework? Did you ever see the production there?
Well, I had to go there because due to the material shortage, we had to make design changes all the time. And again, to demonstrate that the vehicle was really not ready for military use was a fact that we had, I think it was 34,000 changes.
You can see their point of view? What do you
Well,
mean by that?
but I can see they're defending themselves. They don't want to tell the world the truth. So they're defending themselves. They're telling us a lie that they didn't know what's going on. So did most, 90% of the Germans. Nobody knew there was concentration. Nobody knew what they did to the Jews in Germany. Nobody knew the Kristallnacht and all those things, what happened. But they all knew what's going on. They saw the dead. They smelled the crematorium all the time in Dora. They couldn't even burn them fast enough. They had to dig holes, put him in the holes and put gasoline and burn them. And if you ever see hundreds of body flesh being burned, you know it smells. That's all I have to say.
There is a reason that Americans say, gee, we never knew about this. And the reason is it was very much in the interest of the governments that won the war, East and West, but particularly the United States, to keep a lid on what we had discovered when we liberated Dora Nordhausen. And so Americans were told almost nothing about this. Instead, Americans were told about other camps that we liberated, like Dachau in particular. But Dora Nordhausen was largely kept quiet.
On the one hand, one arm of the United States Army prosecuted the war criminals in the Nordhausen trial at Dachau in 1947, and another arm of the U.S. Army, namely Army Ordnance, contributed to trying to keep the German rocket people away from that war crimes trial and keep the whole thing quiet.
They can excuse him all they want. He was the head of that department. He knew the dead. He knew the people hanging. He knew all those things. It's good to say today, 50 years or 60 years later, while he maybe wasn't guilty. He's guilty. Guilty is sin.
When the astronauts were dealing with von Braun, they didn't know anything about the Dora story. They knew nothing, essentially. And you know, the overwhelming experience you have with people who knew von Braun in the United States is, you know, they're not interested in discussing at length the German situation because they basically accepted the Cold War rationale for bringing him here. And they had very positive experiences with him personally.
I was not aware of any of these stories that I think people who do research and the media want to create something of news, so they want to dig up whatever they can, and I feel in a lot of ways that that's motivated not by really a search for the truth, but can we come up with something that's different, sensational? Can we create a hero? Can we create a person who really does great things for us? And then can we find something in his background that we can criticize?
As a man, he was a compassionate person. He was concerned about other people. He was concerned, he took an interest in all of his employees, their families.
So I don't really put too much stock in those stories, and I'm certainly not that interested in delving into somebody's background. All sorts of things are done for a person's country by direction of those above us.
It's important to remember in the case of von Braun, in the case of Rudolph and some of the others, we're not just talking about some men who worked for an evil regime. We're talking about men who themselves took part in Nazi crimes. This isn't just guilt by association. It's not just that some of them were in the SS or the Nazi Party. They were personally complicit in Nazi crimes. The same kinds of crimes for which Albert Speer was convicted at Nuremberg. People like von Braun and Rudolph should have been prosecuted.
I nominated him for the International Boss of the Year, and he won it because he was truly the Boss of the Year.
Unfortunately, von Braun died before the U.S. government, belatedly in 1979, created this office and seriously undertook to investigate Nazis living in the United States. Had he still been alive, there is no doubt that he would have become a major subject of federal investigation.
Von Braun had the idea to go into space as a boy of about 12 or 13 years of age. And at that time he told his mother, he said, "Mother, I would like to spend my life opening the gateway to heavens for mankind." Doesn't that sound great?
That's been a thorn in me for so long about this. He was a genius. He did a lot of good work for the United States, but he should have been not recognized as a hero. It's like a mass murder, letting him loose because he invented something. You wouldn't do that in this country.
Some of these people not only got away with murder, they got away with some very impressive American honors. Certainly von Braun and Rudolph received very high civilian honors, and the glorification of these people goes on. Go to Huntsville, you'll see the Werner von Braun Civic Center. It still bears his name.
Von Braun had this heroic image that Huntsville, Alabama hasn't gotten quite past yet, because it's difficult to deal with the fact that this local hero has this unpleasant aspects of his past.
The people of Huntsville think of Dr. Werner von Braun's contribution far more than exceeds what happened in space. Space was part of it. They look at him as a visionary who brought in a cultural community in the arts and sciences, and with the groups that were brought in to administer space technology, was also brought in a whole new culture to the area, from the museum to the ballet to the plays to the fine arts to the educational levels, the Science Institute, and other areas that are very important to a solid economic base.
Apollo 11 and the landing on the moon was a great technological achievement for the United States, and that will mark, I think, a new era in the human race's expansion into the universe. But The sacrifice of the prisoners at Dora should be remembered as part of that story. That is the most important thing, because for 30 or more years, this country and others participated in essentially the cover-up or the disinterest in that story, that little was said about the prisoners, that their sacrifice, that their suffering was not remembered.